You want a calm, loving relationship, but when it finally arrives, something feels off. What we often call chemistry is not always connection. It is often the nervous system responding to what feels familiar. This video is part of the Somatic Path, a perspective on how the state of the body quietly shapes our relationships, attraction, and experience of life. Enjoy.
Many people say they want a calm, loving relationship. They want someone kind, emotionally steady, and safe to be with. But when that kind of relationship finally appears, something unexpected can happen. Instead of feeling deeply excited, the experience can feel strangely quiet. The emotional highs and lows that once felt like passion are no longer there. The connection may feel peaceful, yet also unfamiliar. Some people begin to wonder if something is missing, or if the relationship lacks chemistry. What they are often encountering in that moment is not a lack of love, but the nervous system experiencing safety in a new way. What most people don't realize is that our experience of attraction is shaped far less by conscious choice than by the state of the nervous system. Long before we think about whether someone is right for us, the body is already interpreting the interaction. The nervous system is constantly asking a very simple question. Does this feel familiar? Familiarity is often what the body interprets as chemistry. For many people, the environments where they first experienced closeness were not calm and predictable. Love may have been mixed with emotional intensity, criticism, withdrawal, or unpredictability. Connection might have included moments of warmth followed by moments of distance. Over time, the nervous system learns to associate closeness with activation. That activation becomes the body's internal map for what love feels like. When a relationship recreates those familiar emotional patterns, the nervous system recognizes the state immediately. The heart rate increases, attention sharpens, and emotions become heightened. Because the body knows this feeling, it interprets the experience as attraction or passion. But what is actually happening is nervous system activation. A secure partner, however, creates a very different emotional environment. They are consistent. Communication is clearer. Conflict does not escalate in the same way. The emotional field of the relationship becomes calmer and more predictable. For a nervous system that has learned to associate closeness with intensity, this calmness can feel unfamiliar, and unfamiliar sensations are often interpreted by the mind as something being missing. Instead of emotional spikes and dramatic highs and lows, the body begins to experience steadiness. There is less urgency, less tension, and fewer emotional swings. Rather than activating the nervous system, the relationship begins to regulate it. At first, that regulation can feel quiet in a way that the mind labels as boredom. But what the nervous system is actually encountering is safety. Over time, as the body begins to trust this stability, the experience of the relationship can shift. What once felt flat can begin to feel grounding. Emotional presence becomes easier now. Intimacy becomes deeper, not because of dramatic intensity, but because the nervous system no longer needs to remain in a constant state of activation. In this way, what many people interpret as a lack of chemistry is often something very different. It is the nervous system learning how to recognize calm as connection, simply calm as connection. Once you begin to understand this dynamic, you can start to see how often it appears in everyday relationship experiences. Many people say they want stability in love. They want a partner who communicates openly, who shows up consistently, and who creates a sense of emotional safety. But when that kind of relationship finally appears, the body sometimes responds in an unexpected way. Instead of feeling deeply excited, the relationship may feel quiet. There are fewer dramatic highs and lows, and conversations feel easier, more natural, and steady. The relationship begins to feel steady rather than intense. For someone whose nervous system is accustomed to emotional intensity, that steadiness can feel unfamiliar. And unfamiliar sensations are often interpreted by the mind as a lack of chemistry. A common example is someone who meets a kind and emotionally available partner. The relationship moves forward smoothly. Communication is always respectful and attentive. The partner is present and supportive. Yet something inside the person begins to feel restless. They may start thinking that this person is great, but I'm not sure I feel the spark. What they are often experiencing in that moment is not the absence of connection, but the absence of activation. The nervous system is no longer being pushed into the heightened emotional states it once associated with attraction. Another example appears when someone notices that they feel more drawn to partners who are unpredictable or emotionally distant. Attention sharpens and the focus intensifies. The mind begins to think about the relationship more and more intensely. That emotional activation can so easily be interpreted as passion. The person may feel a strong pull toward the relationship precisely because it creates that heightened internal state. Yet when they are with someone who is emotionally steady, that same level of stimulation is not present. The relationship feels calmer and more grounded. Without the dramatic emotional swings, the nervous system is not constantly activated. And because many people have learned to associate that activation with chemistry, the calmness of a secure relationship can initially feel less compelling. This pattern can also show up in subtle ways. Someone may find themselves creating unnecessary conflict in a relationship that is otherwise peaceful. They may feel uneasy when things are going well, almost as if the calmness itself is uncomfortable. Sometimes they begin questioning the relationship for reasons that are difficult to explain. They might find themselves thinking something like this: maybe we're too different. Maybe something is missing. Maybe this just isn't the right person. Often these thoughts arise not because the relationship is unhealthy, but because the body is adjusting to a different emotional environment. For a nervous system accustomed to intensity, peace can feel strangely unfamiliar. Another pattern many people recognize is that they feel deeply attracted to relationships that include emotional volatility. There may be passionate reunions after conflict, intense emotional conversations, or dramatic reconciliations. Those moments create powerful emotional surges in the body. The nervous system moves rapidly between states of tension and relief, which can feel extremely compelling. But this cycle of activation and release is very different from the steady presence of secure love. Secure relationships often feel less dramatic. There are fewer emotional extremes in a secure relationship. Instead of repeatedly activating the nervous system, the relationship gradually begins to regulate it. For some people, this shift can feel almost anticlimactic at first. Without the familiar emotional spikes, the relationship may appear quieter on the surface. Yet over time, something deeper begins to emerge. As the nervous system relaxes, communication becomes easier. The body does not need to remain on guard. Emotional presence becomes more natural. The connection becomes less about intensity and more about genuine closeness. What many people initially describe as boredom is often the early stage of something very different. It is the nervous system beginning to experience love without the constant need for emotional activation. And for many people, that experience is entirely new. When people begin to understand this dynamic, their relationship with attraction often starts to shift. What they once interpreted as chemistry may no longer appear in the same way. They begin to see that much of what felt like passion in the past was actually nervous system activation. The emotional intensity that once felt compelling was often created by unpredictability, distance, or unresolved emotional patterns. This does not mean that attraction or excitement disappear in secure relationships. Rather, the quality of the experience changes. Instead of being built on tension and emotional swings, the connection begins to rest on steadiness. As safety becomes more familiar in the body, something important begins to happen. This allows intimacy to deepen in ways that intensity rarely permits. In a regulated relationship, closeness unfolds gradually. Trust builds through consistency rather than dramatic moments. The connection becomes less about emotional highs and lows and more about shared presence. For many people, this shift takes time. At first, the calmness of a secure relationship may feel unfamiliar or even underwhelming. The body may still be accustomed to interpreting activation as attraction. But as the nervous system begins to settle into safety, the experience of the relationship can change in a profound way. What once felt quiet can begin to feel grounding, Instead of chasing emotional intensity, the body begins to appreciate steadiness. Instead of being drawn to unpredictability, it begins to value reliability. In this way, what initially feels like boredom is often something entirely different. It is the nervous system learning how to recognize calm as connection and stability as a form of love that does not require constant intensity in order to feel real. You might pause for a moment and notice what happens in your body when you imagine a relationship that is calm, steady, and emotionally safe. Not dramatic, not unpredictable, just quietly supportive. For many people, something interesting happens when they imagine this. The body becomes quieter. There may be less emotional intensity, less urgency, and less of the nervous energy that often accompanies relationships built on uncertainty. At first, that quietness can feel unfamiliar. Without the emotional highs and lows that once defined attraction, the experience may seem almost neutral. But that quietness is often where something deeper begins to unfold. When the nervous system no longer needs to prepare for sudden changes in closeness or distance, the body begins to relax. Attention widens as the nervous system begins to settle. The constant background tension that often exists in unstable relationships begins to soften. From that place, connection becomes easier. You no longer need to analyze every message or interpret every subtle shift in tone. The relationship does not depend on emotional spikes to create a sense of aliveness. Instead, the connection grows through presence, consistency, and trust. For many people, this experience is entirely new. If the nervous system has been conditioned by years of intensity, it may take time for the body to recognize stability as something meaningful. At first, calmness may still be interpreted as boredom simply because the body has not yet learned to associate safety with connection. But as the nervous system gradually becomes more comfortable in regulated states, the experience of love begins to change. The relationship no longer needs to create constant stimulation in order to feel alive. Instead, the connection becomes something the body can rest inside. And from that place, intimacy becomes possible in a way that intensity rarely allows. So if you notice moments where calmness feels unfamiliar in a relationship, it may be helpful to simply observe what your body is experiencing. Sometimes what first appears to be boredom is actually the nervous system encountering safety in a new form. This perspective is part of what I call the Somatic Path, understanding how the state of the body quietly shapes the relationships we experience and the connections we feel drawn to. If this conversation resonates with you, you can subscribe for future videos. Or continue with the next one where we explore why people sometimes sabotage good relationships even when they genuinely want love.
Hi, it's Jim Daunt. My new book, The Somatic Path, is now available on Amazon. Go check it out. Also, if you're interested in some free ebooks, either check the links in the description or my website, jimdaunt.com.